Oh, well, I'm on the call here with Kevin and Melissa Fredericks. I got to tell you guys, I did not know who you were until recently. A good friend of mine named Rodney, who you already met before the interview started, and my wife are both big fans of yours. So when you wrote your new book, which you know how it looks, I got to hold it up for you at all here. My wife said, we need two copies of that.
Oh,
I said,
there we go.
I said, why is that? The deal is, well, so she got it first, it's before it came out. When it was mailed to me, she got it and tell me that she had gotten it in the mail. So she's been reading this already, Kev. And so I'm just like, okay, this is good. So I'm gonna start with my first question here for you guys. How did you stay married and
Come
write a
on.
book together?
Come on, and ask things. This is a real life question. I appreciate it. You know what? We actually started marriage therapy through the course of writing this book.
Wow.
It has been a true journey of like introspection and reflection. Writing a book is a beautiful way to see how far you've come. It's also a really great way, and it exposes areas that you could use some improvement on. And I
Mhm.
think through this process, you're writing about your lessons and things that you've learned, and you realize, oh, wait a minute, this issue isn't all the way healed all the way. Hold on a second. This right here, we talking about it, but like right now I feel like we're arguing a little bit. So like what happened? What happened? And so we actually started, like I said, marriage therapy through this.
It
This is
was,
the only way we stayed married, yeah.
yeah, it was like being on a, I'm into Marvel. It's like being on a quantum time path, right?
Wow.
Multiverse, because you're dealing with your problems of today. And in order to write about stuff you went through, you're accessing those memories and those feelings. And some of those you haven't felt in a while. So you're
Yeah.
dealing with that. You got to have a writing session. And then you also, did you forget to take the trash down? Yeah, yes, I did. Well, now I'm fussing about this. And then we got to go on about our lives. So, and it didn't happen negatively. Some days we're thinking about something funny that happened and something great that happened that day. But you do have to, when you're coming from how Melissa and I approach this, is from a true place of authenticity.
Yeah.
And memories come back and they be as strong as they were the moment it happened. I remember a couple of times we was writing and I was like, ooh, this chapter gonna get me in trouble all over again,
Right.
fresh.
Right.
Just like it's 2006 again, baby. I'm
Right.
getting in trouble all over again. So yeah, so you'll know that our book it's real deal, Holyfield.
It's the real deal. I gotta tell you, I was surprised how real it was because oftentimes when you're sitting in my seat, you interview so many different people, and not that their books aren't good or anything, but you just go, okay, they've made this very Christian. Your book, on the other hand, is very authentic, and I would tell every couple that they do need two copies of this, one for each other, so they're reading at the same time. Because
Yeah, we
if
love
you
that.
don't, it's gonna throw you off a little bit. But why'd you decide to be so authentic? You didn't have to be, but why'd you decide to be?
Yeah, I think the main reason, I mean, it's the reason we wrote this book. We wrote this book because it's the book we wish we had. Melissa and I grew up very churchy. The majority of our memories of life are church memories or in the church. And when we got married, we're struggling with our marriage like, we feel like everybody else is, but at, church, and I only say at church because that's the place we spent most of our time. Everybody else's marriage don't seem to be having no problems. We looking around like, man, is it only us? What's going on here? And then lo and behold, them same people who never had an issue, marriage is perfect for us, they're getting divorced. So we're like, wait a second, the last 3 years you told us everything was perfect every time. It ain't nothing but testimonies and all this good stuff. And now y'all went from that to divorce. What happened in the interim? And we found out people weren't always sharing exactly how marriage is hard. They were just sharing the high points. So we decided to write the book that we wish we had to read, and we want other people to have access to. It's the practical part of marriage, right?
Yeah.
It's for us, marriage was like, here's the ingredients to bake a cake, here's an oven. No recipe, no amounts, no nothing. So we're like, okay, I've seen an egg before. I've seen salt. I'm familiar with an oven. How do I take this and make a pound cake? Our book is that recipe. Here's how you take these things. You're going to have to break some eggs, which is hard. You're going to have to do this and that. And the oven's going to be hot for a little while. But at the end, you're going to have this beautiful piece. Our book is the recipe. And that's a fantastic analogy, whether you guys agree or not. I'm going to be using that for the rest of my life.
Thank you, Ken. I gotta ask this question. You mentioned in the book how you both came from different backgrounds.
Mhm.
How have you both been able to navigate the waters of that? And I think in every marriage, people come from different backgrounds, different cultures, and sometimes it just doesn't work out the way that we think it should. How have you
Mhm.
guys made it work?
Yeah, I think that's the essence of what makes marriage hard is you're literally taking two people with two different perspectives, two different backgrounds, and they're coming together and trying to create a life together, and that is what makes it hard. Some of the ingredients that make it easier is and I talk about it in the book is honest, transparent conversation,
Yeah.
honest, transparent, vulnerable conversation. But that's also really hard, not because well, oftentimes it's hard because we weren't taught that. We often are taught or we have seen, but from our parents, not that they've like physically told us, but you do what you've seen. So you've seen your parents, and when they talk, it's often harder emotions that they lead with. So you hear them fussing and yelling at each other instead of leading with, I missed you.
Mhm.
I wanted you next to me. So what you hear, all you do is leave the house. You don't care about us. Instead of saying it really hurt my feelings and I really just wanted to spend some quality time with you because I haven't seen you because you've been on the road. No one says that. And if you lead with those emotions, walls come down. You're less likely to be met with defense. You're less likely to be met with excuses. And instead, when you're met with this energy, guess what you're going to get back? That same energy.
Yeah.
And now we're arguing about how you're yelling at me instead of the reality, which started off as something really sweet. I just missed you and wanted to spend some time with you.
Wow.
Walls and draws come down.
I was wondering how far I could get on this interview without having to laugh all the time. And I see we're already in. Here we go.
You want the walls and the draws to come down? There you go.
We'll talk after the interview. This is done. I'm sorry. No, you guys talked about taking a break. And I asked this question because this is very real in my household. I came from a household where it was okay to take a break. My wife came from a household like, you're not going to bed angry. We're going to talk right now. And so, how we argued about this for the last 15 years of our marriage. So, seeing you talk about it was amazing. How have you navigated that, the taking a break and stepping away?
So this is interesting because my wife and I are the same way as you and your wife. I come from your wife's school of thought, and Melissa's come from the take a break school of thought. First of all, I had the Bible on my side when the Bible says, "Don't let the sun set on your anger." Okay, context wise, I don't know what they mean, but for my argument, I know it doesn't say take a break from your anger.
Hello.
It says don't let the sun set on your anger. So one thing Melissa
It
and
also
I,
says anger and sin
no,
not.
no.
So we
Sun,
can talk about it if you want to. You might get cussed out. We don't want that either, do we?
Right, Melissa.
Don't use the
And that's
Bible.
why we should take a break.
I'm making my
That's
point.
why we should take a
Don't
break.
use the Bible to make your point when I'm using it to make my point. So Melissa comes from that school of thought, and one thing I learned from her in the Love Hour is family of origin, right? My family, we all thought that was right, and when you're raised, whatever you're taught, you think is right. And the same way Melissa came from, we take a break because in her family things got heated, they would go too far. So she saw that, and I remember the moment I acquiesced because I used to be pushing for this, and Melissa would be like, I'm not gonna have this conversation with you because Melissa needs to, when she's flooded with emotions, she can't process her feelings, so she needs a second away
Or
from the.
I process them, but the way that they come out is really sharp. And once words come out, you can't take it back. You
Right.
can't. And so I don't mean to hurt your feelings. I really don't. But if I'm flooded and you're gonna force me to talk, well, now I'm gonna hurt your feelings. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So we have to take a moment. I have to take a break, not only process my feelings, but now think about how I want them to come out, how I want to articulate them so they land on you in a space that you can receive and not be met with defense.
So in order to learn to love her and be married to her, I had to understand her. And part of her now is where she came from. So I remember the day we was fussing about this, and she was like, let's talk about it in the morning. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna let it go. Talk about it in the morning. I'm gonna try a little stupid way. I
Hello?
said that in my head.
Hello?
And lo and to the behold, that next morning we had a much more productive conversation about the issue than we would have had at the moment. And that's really what we wanted to do, is have a productive conversation, not necessarily have a productive conversation at that moment, right? So I think sometimes we fight so hard to have it our way that even if you got it, if I had that conversation with her now and she was just pissing me off, then what was the point, right? We're no further along in the issue at hand. I just got my way and we had the conversation before we went to bed, but now we're just going to bed mad. Right. So I think one key to understanding how to be married to a person is understanding how they see the world, their family of origin, their money story, all of those things. It kind of gives you the background on the person and gives you context on that person, as opposed to you just seeing as they don't want to do things the way I want to do them. And also knowing that the way you want to do things isn't the right way. It's just the way that you've always done them. It's not the right way. It's not necessarily the only way. And like Melissa said, when you're marrying a person, you are marrying two different lives into one, which means you're going to have to give up some of yours and they're going to have to give up some of theirs. And you're going to have to create some new ones in order to have a successful marriage.
100%.
I agree. A few more questions here. I'll let you guys go. I don't know how to bring this one up without probably jokes behind it. Sex, you talk about it on chapter 3. I know the chapter, Kevin. You know, man.
Come on, I'm with it.
I don't give away too much of that chapter, obviously, because I'm going to buy the book. Why did you feel like you had to talk about that, write about it, discuss it? Why did you feel like you had to talk about that in the book?
I feel like, just from my point of view, listen, growing up in the church, and this is not an admonishment of the church, this is just the memories that I have. There was a lot of gaps that needed to be filled. I remember when I was young, this wasn't even necessarily about marriage, but I said, hey man, what do you do when you're horny and you want to do something? You know, how do you get out of that? It was like, pray and take a cold shower. And I was like, okay. And then I tried that. And then I was just horny in a cold shower and I'm just cold, but nothing has really changed about how I feel. So now when I dry off, I'm still, none of that stuff didn't, and nothing didn't work. It didn't work.
I'm just cold, wet, and cold. Still horny. I'm confused.
So again, sex, money, communication are probably the top 3 reasons people get divorced. There's plenty of books on money, plenty of books on communication, not as much on healthy sex. There's a lot on, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Right? So we wanted to be able to say, guys, here's the stuff that you're likely going to dealing with, or will deal with. Well, I said likely and will, but you get it. I was trying to be cool and say 3 things, but it really was just 3 different.
Okay, we got it.
But so we wanted people to be able to say, oh snap, this is what me and my wife go through. Oh, my husband's like this. My wife's like this. I'm like this. Oh, here's what I learned from my parents. Because if you don't have a healthy sexual relationship with your partner, you likely don't have a healthy marriage. Point blank.
It's a litmus test.
It's a litmus test. If y'all ain't had sex in months, you probably aren't feeling happy in your marriage. You both aren't probably feeling happy. So if you don't get that piece together, it's like diet and exercise. You can work out as hard as you want to every day, burn 1,000 calories every morning. If you don't complement that with a healthy diet, there's a limit to how healthy you will be. So I think that's why we wrote about it, and that's why we wrote about it for real, because we wanted people to finish this book and be like, dang, they was really putting their life out there to help us, because that's what our podcast was like. You know, a lot of the things in this book are not covered in the podcast, but it's and a lot of them aren't covered in depth. Like there's a limit to what you can do in an hour long episode. So we wanted people to be able to pass this book along and have a better marriage as a result. Because there's some marriage books that we read that really helped our marriage. And we wanted to add that to the books available so we can really help marriages.
Yeah. I got this question, last question. When you guys look back from El Paso to Maryland to LA, what do you think? I mean, you've taken some big steps of faith, and I don't know, when I look back at your journey, the research I've done a little bit here, I go, man, those are some huge steps of faith. What do you think when you look back to where you're at now? And I would say you're pretty successful now, obviously.
I would cite the songwriter who said, I thought I told you that we won't stop. I thought I told you that we won't stop. No. I think we, moving to LA. So moving wasn't really hard for us. the idea of moving because we're both military. Our parents moved around basically every 3 to 4 years. But they moved and their job was there when they moved to that place, and their house was there. Like, so that's different than what we did. I think we took a calculated risk and we did it together. That's a different a key as well. I wanted to move. I wanted my family to come with me. I presented a plan to my wife on what that looked like. We worked together to make that plan a reality. And I think that's a key part about why our move worked, is because there wasn't she didn't have the ability to be like, I told you so if something went wrong, because this was a plan we agreed on doing and that we agreed together. But now, many years later, almost 10 years,
10 years,
be 10 years in March.
Mm-hmm.
Years later, it's like, oh snap, that really worked out for us. Our children are living a life that would have been possible in Washington. We're living a life that I always dreamed of. But in some ways, things that have happened, things that God has blessed us with, weren't even in my dreams.
They weren't even in the plan.
And the Bible says, now unto him who is able to do exceeding abundantly above all you could ever ask or think. He done helped me dream my dreams and realize those. And he done gave me some ones I've never even dreamed of. So I got to dream new dreams, and even those new dreams, he gonna do more than that.
Because he fulfills those.
What? Yes.
I gotta ask this question. I told my wife, I said, I probably will not be able to interview you guys ever again after this, because you're gonna blow up in such a big, a bigger way. It's gonna be like, okay, see you later, little guy. So I gotta ask this question though: where does the creativity come from? Because since my wife and my good friend Rodney told me about you guys, I love watching all your stuff. And I'll be sitting here laughing to myself thinking, I could have said that better, Kev. No, I'm joking. I mean, where does that come from, man?
I mean, I believe creativity comes from the creator. I mean, the first creator was God. He created the heaven and earth, the people, all that stuff. And we are his children. So I believe everyone is creative in their own way. I think it's just finding what you're good at, what you create, and how to maximize it. But I think it's a God-given gift. I think everybody's talented. Everybody's creative. Everybody can express themselves in a way that's unique to them. I think some people just tap into it and use it more than others. Some, are fear, insecurity, or access, whatever the case is. But I think we all are creative.
Yeah, I'd agree. Last question. I'm sorry, Melissa.
Now, you done said that 3-4 times. Just stop saying it.
No, he said it was the question before last, the last before four.
Just stop saying last.
Now we're at the last. This is officially the last.
And it better not be no
last. And then there's lunch. There's lunch. When you look back, when you guys hit send on the book, did you say everything that you wanted to say?
Ooh, I like this question.
I would say no, so they give us another book deal.
Hello?
We done left out the
keys. That good. I hope there is another deal. Seriously.
No, I think we really, when I make a video or something or a piece of content, whatever, I make the best thing I can make at the time that I can make it. I feel like we poured in everything we knew about marriage at the moment we turned that in. That was everything we had to give. Now, obviously, since we wrote the book, things have happened. We've learned more. So there's more that we know now than when we wrote the book. But, from last year, I mean, and that's everything we've learned in the last 20 years, of hundreds of podcasts, everything we put in there. We didn't leave anything out.
Yeah, I just looked this up because when there was some stuff going on in the world of politics, and I listened to this podcast, and they talked about this thing called stare decisis, I think is how you say it. Anyway, it means to stand by things decided. It's something I work on because I'm one of those people that ponders and regrets and thinks, what if I did, I could have done, da 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 da. And when you stand by things decided, it allows you to say, I did the very best with the information that I had at that moment. I can't go back and change it based on what I know now. So let it stand. And so I think, just to echo what Kevin said, because I wanted to say, child, there's so much more I do want to say, and I wish I could have said, and I da-da-da. But the reality is, at the time that we turned it in, I was very super proud. And to now try to strip that away based on information I know today is not fair to the Melissa of yesterday that did what she you know, the very best she could in that moment. So I'm standing by things that were decided. Yes.
Wow.
No. I mean, no to your answer. No.
No.
No. Yeah, you understand what I'm trying to say. You understand.
I do. Well, I finished.
I apologize.
I finished on time. I got my last question in.
Bless you.
I will not be able to interview you guys ever again after this time.
It was good though. This time was good.
Thank you.
And thank you, Rodney.
Thank you, Rodney, and to your wife. We appreciate you guys supporting us and following us over the course of the years. And your name is pronounced Maina. Mina. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mina, for interviewing us. This was fantastic. I thought you was going to say Mana because it was like manna, like your mama's churchy or something. That's where I thought this was going. Yeah, that's where I thought it was going.
No, this was so good. I appreciate you guys so much. Kev, thank you for taking a stand.
Of course.
Thank you.
Seriously.